Hi, Aaron and Mike. I don't think we're going to get a meeting scheduled, so I'm going to try to communicate this idea in a quick video and then have you guys email or similarly record comments back, however it makes sense. So Lynn Kaczynski and I met this morning. We both have time this week to work on what we want to build as an Elucidat module for coaches around how to coach the evidence binder. Um, and the process in 3.0 and how it differs from 2.0. We're seeing in general a very uneven application of the new 3.0 binder when we go to 3.0 reviews. And we realize as this is kind of a beta year for 3.0 reviews, we have not trained coaches well enough on what a good binder looks like in 3.0. Um, so Michael, for your benefit, but also Aaron, what we're looking at right now is a um, 2.0 binder. This was a school that got Lighthouse early in the year, and this was 144 pieces of evidence the school had to upload. And our guidance to schools was always when you get a piece of evidence, upload it. So here they were silly little things like check boxes you had to fill in. You needed to show that your marquee has happened to the Leader in Me communicated through it. So people would put something like this, a picture of the marquee and then a short explanation about how it's used. And similarly, they would put up a piece of evidence about their website, a picture of the website or a link to the website and an explanation. So this is the way, and our message to schools was as you go through the process over your 3 to 5 years, put pieces of evidence up there with a short description, if possible, that explains why this is a good piece of evidence. Sometimes when we say there's a mission, here, this school also gave a short explanation. This process had a lot of benefits and a lot of detractors as well. What we moved to instead, as you know, is the new 3.1 rubric. So that instead for elements such as, I guess those two we were just showing there were like physical environment or emotional environment pieces. Um, it has a rubric that explains instead that this is what common language looks like. This is what a physical environment looks like. So a school instead now has to present evidence when they are up for a Lighthouse review that they are at this mature level in each of the 27 criteria and the paradigms. So instead of checking off a list, they're instead giving us evidence and proving that they meet that standard. So the idea that but we really haven't taught coaches how to use the evidence binder in this new world. The other thing I think you know is the evidence binder's model in the beginning was this would crowdsource a lot of excellent examples of what the Leader in Me is, and that people could find pieces of ideas through people populating the evidence binder and choosing to make them public. We want to change the paradigm a little bit for how we use the evidence binder, and that's why I think Erin needs to be in this conversation. What Lynn and I were talking about is something she's been working on her schools this year with. And the model, the language she uses that I like is that as you work through the process of the Leader Me, you should throw pieces of evidence of your journey into a big file cabinet. And your Leader in Me file cabinet doesn't need to be terrifically organized or formally posted anywhere. It is just your internal record of progress that you can house in a variety of different places and ways depending on your school. When you are ready to apply for Lighthouse, you get out your rubric and you look through the pieces of the rubric and you look at the mature column and you find evidence that shows that you are at this mature column in each of these places. And using the language of the rubric, you choose evidence that shows that in this situation, staff, students, and families collaborate. So you would find an example in your file cabinet of stuff around physical environment of staff and students and families collaborating. You would find an example of where it reflects 7 habits and leadership principles and put that into your evidence binder and explain that piece there. So that file cabinet doesn't exist in our current system, and it can be something very different from school to school. Lynn had shared some neat examples with me of what she's doing with her year 1 schools, and here's an example of a file cabinet that she's helped the school create. This is a year 1 school, and as they're working, they've got a slide for each criteria. So here's new staff learning. They've done nothing with this one yet, which is fine. But they have with their direct learning, for example, as they do things in school that show direct learning, they will pop in examples of the evidence. And sometimes that might be a picture and an example. So this is shared by different members of the Lighthouse team. They can each throw things into this virtual file cabinet, and it can grow depending on how many other, here's just a placeholder for someone putting in this art project. And they have this internally so that when they come to the point where they want to go for Lighthouse, they will have all these ideas and pieces of evidence in their virtual file cabinet. This also could be a big accordion paper binder in a school if they would prefer that. It could be an actual file cabinet. It could be a PowerPoint deck. It could be a lot of things that schools could use, a Google folder. But whatever it is, the guidance for us schools would be create a file cabinet where members of your Lighthouse team can throw stuff. What would happen when a school went for Lighthouse in this model is they would pick out the pieces of evidence that prove the case best. And this is where I'm going to show you Hiller Elementary, which is one of Lynn's schools, that just did a Lighthouse review. I wasn't on this, but I wish I was, because it's a great model, I think, for what we could guide people to do. So when they came time for Lighthouse, they made a PowerPoint deck for each of the 27 criteria, color-coded it, which was nice, included a narrative first explaining how they met the standard. Using the language, again, we talk about a system in our rubric. We talk about the number of times that people have training. We talk about different pieces of the rubric that they use the language. And then here they have examples of pieces of evidence that show the application of these of their evidence to the rubric. Student learning, for example. Here's another example. They have their little PowerPoint slide. They also uploaded some hard copy examples of lessons, but their PowerPoint deck kind of makes the case that they are at this level. Again, a short narrative that uses the language. It talks about the Leader in Me principles as well as the habits. Higher order thinking is something we have in the sustaining level description. So they are justifying in each of these things and then showing slides of, and here they're referring to the pause lesson that is all that we just saw over there. I'll show you one other example of the way another school did it. They similarly, this is another one of Lynn's schools, so she's approaching it in a similar mode. But the idea is that with the school's evidence binder would not necessarily have a ton of information, but it would each have maybe one deck for each point. This would also still be very useful to schools who are searching the Leader in Me online. If they've heard about, hey, I hear that school has a great system for leadership events, they would go open that deck and look at the examples that are in there. But it makes it a much more focused on the rubric, focused on the elements that we're looking for in the rubric, and it's just a whole lot clearer. They also could use this PowerPoint deck in a variety of different ways for their school. They'll be able to pull from this to share with community members when they're talking about things, maybe lead family trainings. It could be a really easy way for them to present their evidence in other formats. So that's the idea, gentlemen. And I want to, before working on designing a training built around this idea, I wanted first to ask Michael if this kind of fits or doesn't fit with where you see the Leader in Me online working and how it might conflict with different ways that we might see the Leader in Me online evolve. And Aaron, I just think you just need to have a voice in this too, as formally overseeing the Leader in Me online, but also it does have a development feel to what we're doing as we're creating some learning for coaches, and we're also really changing the vision of the Leader in Me online in a pretty significant way. I shouldn't say changing, it's just adjusting it a bit, and I wanted to bounce this off you guys. So that's the idea. Again, you can search these two schools, Hiller and Winchester, if you want. And I guess I should have started with this. This was a great school I visited last week. A very good school who had a pretty crummy evidence binder, and honestly, I'm tired of it. And it's not, they're just dumping stuff in their binder. They don't necessarily have descriptions that align to the rubric or really they're just putting things in there and not really connecting the dots about why they um, say what they want them to say. And I think that's what we're trying to teach. Um, okay, so thank you for listening to this. Y'all can either email me back, but my hope is that you give me some kind of thoughts today or tomorrow, because I've got to start working on this week, because this is the window of time I have to build it. So thanks, guys. You can either call me, email me, record your own video back, whatever makes sense for you to avoid an impossible meeting that we can't set this week because of your schedules. All right. Thanks, guys.